Hey, welcome back to the Philbrook Football Podcast. It's been a couple weeks. We skipped over Pro Bowl week because, let's be honest, there was really nothing important going on. And, teams were just getting ready for the Super Bowl and players are getting drunk in, where was it, Orlando this year? Or was
the Pro Bowl?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. I think it was in Orlando.
Wherever. They're all just getting drunk, and that was obvious by Keenan Allen's hands challenge or whatever. Did you watch any of that?
I saw some of the stuff. I saw the dodgeball. That was pretty entertaining.
Yeah, the one that takes like the least amount of skill.
Yeah.
Okay. So
to be fair, they had a great ending. Okay, Jarvis Landry had like a clutch,
just like last year.
Yeah.
So there's like a hands challenge where the quarterbacks have to throw these passes to the receivers and they have to catch them in different ways.
Yes.
And Keenan Allen could not catch a one-handed pass to save his life at the end of it. And then you're supposed to make a diving catch at the end. And both, if you get a chance, you should watch it. It's hilarious. He like goes to dive and just kind of like flops onto the pad and the ball goes way past him. And then he's just like laughing on it. And some other receiver, I think it was Devontae Adams, comes up and he's laughing with him. And he gets back up to try it again, and the announcers are like, okay, well, now he's just doing this for fun because he's like a minute and a half past the like losing time or whatever.
Didn't Russell Wilson and Michael Thomas win it? Wasn't that the combo?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Michael Thomas was catching everything. Russell Wilson was actually doing, he was pretty solid on it for sure, but
he didn't do too well in the throwing competition, but
no, yeah, he was awful in that.
He was really bad in
I
that.
was like, oh man, my quarterback. This is unfortunate. But anyways, this is the Super Bowl, the first of our postseason podcasts.
And just to clarify, if you didn't watch until the end last week, we did notice an uptick in viewers, so maybe you did watch until then. I don't know, but
don't jinx it.
Yeah, well, if you didn't, just to reiterate, in the off season, obviously we don't have enough to talk about for an hour every single week. Like you guys would probably get bored of us talking about non-stories, and we're not ESPN, and we're not all these things that are like today, as the day that we recorded this, pretty much every single major news site posted about the Yankees acquiring Russell Wilson in a baseball trade, and literally every single sports page I follow posted about it, and I was like, this is not a big story. Why is
they
this
just post non-stories just to get clicks.
It's the off season, so we're not like that. We're not going to talk about crap like that the whole time. So most of the podcasts that you'll see will be centered around predictions going into next year, but more at this point, probably stuff as we get closer to free agency and the draft. If there's any like major things that start happening that we could compile and make a solid podcast about, then you'll see us talk about that. But you won't see weekly recaps like we do during the season.
Yeah, and that's just kind of how it is with a lack of viable content. But yeah, this week there's plenty to talk about.
Yep.
We'll start with the Super Bowl. The Eagles won their first Super Bowl 41-33 over the New England Patriots. Valiant effort from Tom Brady. I think even with this loss, he's still cemented himself as, he was already cemented as probably the greatest quarterback of all time. But
yeah, I'm in the position of, I think that it hurts his case a little bit, just because I don't know. There's quarterbacks that have been really good in the past that haven't lost in Super Bowls, and so I think that this loss, this loss, instead of the win that he could have had, because if he won this Super Bowl, I think that's like, okay, there's no way you can argue it now. It's like this dude is insane, and he had a great performance, and I'm not like trying to take away from that. Like, he had an insane performance, but like, I don't know, for me it's kind of this like, there's this whole LeBron James and Michael Jordan debate in the NBA that people have their sides for that, and it's kind of the same kind of thing happens with Joe Montana and Tom Brady, where they look at rings just like they would do with LeBron and Jordan. They look at rings, and when you look at rings, Brady has one more, and Joe Montana, is 4-0. So they're like, well, Joe Montana has to be the best because he's 4-0. He never lost in a Super Bowl. But the argument there is, well, he didn't make it to 10 Super Bowls.
And football is a team game.
Right.
Tom Brady didn't allow 41 points to be scored. They still scored 30 points, and he threw for over 500 yards, and he had one turnover at the end of the game.
And we're not Pats fans. We should probably clarify that. We're not.
Oh, absolutely. I loved watching them lose. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was great.
And Tom Brady was definitely a sore loser and left the field without even shaking hands with Nick Foles or anything like that. And I mean, it is what it is. Tom Brady, the person, isn't Tom Brady as a player.
Right.
And I think he did everything he possibly could to win, especially with Brandon Cooks going out. I mean, it didn't seem like either of his other receivers could really get anything going. Chris Hogan had a couple of bad drops.
There were some bad drops in this game for sure.
They couldn't get a run game going. It was just bad. Outside of Tom Brady, and Gronkowski, really, but obviously, you can say all you want about that, but the Eagles definitely fought really hard to win this game, and I mean, Peterson straight up outcoached Bill Belichick in this game.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it.
Well, Peterson came out and said, I don't care if it's 4th down. I'm just going to go for it anyways. Like he made some serious big time calls in this game that I did not expect him to make. I mean, that trick play on
4th down, the Trey Burton and Nick Foles.
That was I was going nuts when I saw that because that happened not too long after Tom Brady dropped a pass on pretty much the same play.
Right.
So seeing them do that, being like, oh no, we can do that play better, and getting a touchdown off of it, that was pretty awesome to watch.
It was really cool. And it's just it shows that he learned from everybody else's mistakes.
Yep.
All these other teams that have lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl all played not to lose rather than playing to win, except for the Giants. The only team that beat Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl, the New York Giants, they played just like the Eagles did on Sunday. They played aggressively. They didn't lay down and try to just run the clock out. They continued to pound even after the Patriots were getting behind, or that's how you have to play against them. I mean, look at Atlanta's that perfect example last year, making a big lead and then playing conservatively the rest of the game until Tom Brady and the Patriots come back and win that game. I mean, Doug Peterson definitely, he's never going to pay for another drink in Philadelphia.
No kidding.
He's going to get whatever he wants. They're going to put a statue of him there. Because now, the Eagles finally have their first Super Bowl ring.
Yep.
The last time they had won a championship was 1960, before the Super Bowl was even a thing.
Yep.
And with this win, actually, the NFC East is the only division in football where every single team has won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I was reading about that. They're the first division. All 4 teams have won the Super Bowl in their history. I'm
going through in my head right now all these divisions, and
it's been a while for the Redskins, but
I was gonna say Redskins haven't won one in a while, but no, you're right, because I obviously my mind went immediately to the NFC West because that's where the Seahawks are, and I was like, I feel like everyone in there has won a Super Bowl, but
no, Arizona
still is not in the club. So.
Yeah, they had a chance a couple of years ago to make it, but they couldn't do it. But yeah, so congratulations to the NFC East for making it in. Congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles for finally getting one.
And congratulations to their fans who maybe didn't make the best decisions as far as what they did after the Super Bowl. But for their team and for the people that have been waiting for years and years and years and years and years, and after seeing them get so close with Donovan McNabb and in the 2004 Super Bowl, like, They were so close, and they finally got it, and it was pretty great because they did it with a backup quarterback, and it was just a really cool story. Just a great underdog, feel good story of a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and it was a great game. I mean, it was
good the whole time. Like, it was never bad.
The Eagles seemed to be kind of like, I don't want to say like dominating, but you could definitely tell they had the upper hand in the beginning of the game. And into halftime, they came in with a sizable lead. And, Patriots, just like they always do, second half adjustments, make it come back, make it a close game. And then, but the Eagles just kept punching them in the mouth, man. Their defense, or the Patriots defense, was just laying down. It seemed like they couldn't do anything. And
the big difference, sorry to interrupt you, but on that point, I feel like the huge difference in this game was the fact that the Eagles defense, even though they're giving up so many yards, pretty much all of it was through the air. The Patriots had almost no run game. Like, they really had nothing going in the run game other than that one run from James White where he broke free for the touchdown. That was really it. They didn't have much else. And meanwhile, Eagles it seemed like every play the Eagles ran, they'd get at least 5 or 6 yards. Like, it just every single play. And
their offensive line played lights out. Nick Foles didn't get sacked once.
I wanted to get to their offensive line because early in the game, I saw maybe my favorite block of all time. Jason Kelsey, their center, who is like, I'd probably say the best center in the league right now. He had this awesome block where he's blocking one guy, and then this other guy has like a slightly delayed blitz. So he just goes from blocking this one guy to taking his right arm and just holding this guy. So he's got both of his arms just outstretched, and he's blocking these two mammoth guys by himself. And Nick Foles, because of that block, has the time to like get this. He throws it. I think he threw over the middle to Zach Ertz. He was doing just a crossing route.
Sure.
And it was so awesome because I was like, oh, there's no way. Like, they don't have enough blockers. He's just going to run right through, and just Jason Kelsey, just 2 arms, like holding back these 2 guys going all out. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, man.
It was so cool.
They by far had the best offensive line in football this year. And I mean, even after losing their best offensive lineman, Jason Peters.
Yeah.
I mean, Vaitai came in and he played well. I mean, even for a backup left tackle.
He didn't start off well, but he
made some good development this year. And, I mean, the play that they got, when you put your backup left tackle in, you expect a guy like Byron Bell for the Cowboys, who just like, you go from Tyron Smith to Byron Bell, some dude who shouldn't even be in the league. That guy was so terrible.
He was pretty bad.
There's a reason. Yeah. And, Vaitai held his own. I mean, it helps to play with like basically 4 Pro Bowl caliber players on the line with you. But I mean, at the same time, like, you still have to do your job and make sure you're blocking your guy. And, he performed very well, especially in the Super Bowl. He got pressured a couple of times, but like I said, Nick Foles never got sacked. Was rarely under pressure. He had a couple of plays where he had to roll out to the right or something just because he was getting pressure from that side. But I mean, that was it.
But Nick Foles made a lot of really good decisions. Even when he was pressured, he made really for the most part, a lot of smart decisions. And even his interception, that really wasn't on him. Like, he got it to Jeffrey, and he was a little off, and Jeffrey tried to tip it back into his hands, and he tipped it back, onto the field of play pretty much, and it landed right in the Patriots guy's hand. So that wasn't really on Nick Foles,
Sure. Of course it could have been better placed, but yeah, at that point, Jeffrey, you just got to know, like, he was just trying to do too much.
Right. So,
yeah, I mean, Nick Foles knew that, he might never get an opportunity to come to this game again.
Yeah.
So he was making some ballsy throws that, honestly, I didn't think he had any business. After seeing like Nick Foles in the past, I thought there's no way he should be making these throws. The throws that he was making was like Tom Brady throws.
Yeah.
He was dropping dimes to Alshon Jeffrey. There was one in the...
Oh, yeah. I was super hyped when they got that Alshon Jeffrey bomb. I was like, ooh!
Yeah, there was that one. There was one... it was just a first down pickup. It was to Nelson Aguilar. I was watching the play. It was late in the game, and Zach Ertz was off to the left, wide open. I thought instantly, oh, he's gonna has like throw it to Ertz. He's right there, and then
I know
he
which one you're
throws
talking
it
about now.
right between two defenders, right in the middle of the field, right to Nelson Aguilar, and I was like, how is Nick Foles doing this now?
That play was when I had the same thought. I said, oh yeah. I now that you're explaining it, I remember this exact play because there was two defenders and he just squeezed it right between them instead of going for the safe play on the outside to get like 5 yards. He just like squeezed it in between these guys and got it right to Nelson. And I was like, I had this kind of same reaction of like, oh yeah, he's feeling it. He's like, I got this.
Yeah.
And what did I say last week? You know, I was saying how, you know, the best chance. Well, first of all, okay, my prediction was right. I said the Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl. So, you know, genius of all football is me.
Yeah, sure.
But
you had a 50-50 chance.
yeah.
Good
Well,
job.
apparently not, because the Patriots were gonna blow them out. So, but what I was saying last week was, if they don't have turnovers, if the Eagles don't have a bunch of turnovers, they're going to be fine. And sure enough, they had one turnover, and it wasn't even really a huge deal because it was like on their Patriots side of the field anyways.
Right.
So like, there really weren't any turnovers for them, and they ended up being able to hold on to the ball, put up a lot of points because the Patriots feed off of turnovers. And they maybe could have gotten a couple more if they played their best cornerback, but I mean, that's their decision.
Well,
So,
I think they did play their best cornerback. I think their second best cornerback got benched.
sure.
And because, I mean, you saw in the second half, as soon as they let Gilmore shadow Jeffrey just disappeared from the game.
Yeah.
He didn't. They came out and made that adjustment, and because all of the plays that Jeffrey was getting he was just burning Eric Rowe.
Yeah.
And as soon as they said, okay, well, maybe we should have Gilmore just play shadow coverage on Jeffrey, then he went away. In the second half, there's a reason why Jeffrey didn't do anything in the second half. Gilmore was following him all around. But yeah, that situation with Butler is kind of weird because, like, Belichick has even come out to say that it was just football related. There hasn't been any disciplinary. There's been some rumors, but there's nothing concrete. There's nothing.
There were rumors, and then Malcolm Butler came out and denied them himself. He was like, no, that's not what happened.
And nobody in the organization
Right.
has said, no, this did happen. Nobody's come out and said that. Bill Belichick said that it was football reasons. I think he just tried to outsmart himself. Eric Rowe finished out the year on a good note. He was playing really well and playing well through the playoffs.
Did you see the theory that it was rigged, and that's why he benched Malcolm Butler? Because they were like,
These are the same people
who
this is the same people who think the world is flat. Like, the game is not rigged. Like, there's no reason to rig the game other than for what? For money?
Yeah, for betting purposes.
For betting purposes.
That's usually what the claim
whatever.
is.
I mean, yeah, it's just ridiculous. I don't know what it was, but Butler's about to get paid anyways.
Yeah.
And it was just a stupid decision by Bill Belichick. Like I said, I think he just tried to get too cute, tried to mix it up so the Eagles didn't know how to prepare. But, man, there has to be something. There had to be some reason.
There was something, because Malcolm Butler was clearly upset.
And even in the second half, the Eagles were walking up and down the field. Every time they took the field, they were walking down the field. And at that point, it's like, okay, maybe we should make an adjustment. Butler, Malcolm, let's go. Let's get you out there.
Eric Rowe's playing like crap, so maybe we should take him out for a little bit here.
So stupid. So stupid. I don't know. But whatever. He's going to get paid. He's going to go somewhere and get paid. I've been seeing, who was it? Someone from the, what team was it? Oh, I can't even remember now. There's a few teams that are, well, actually, there's going to be a lot of teams that are interested in him because he's a good cornerback. And
he's not terrible. He's definitely a good starter to put in if you don't have good starters already.
Yeah, I think he's a significant upgrade for anyone. Maybe he's not like a true number one corner, but he's an absolute top tier 2 corner.
Sure, yeah. He's certainly in the discussion of like I'd say probably the top 10 to 15 corners in the league. I'd say he's in there somewhere. I'm a little different with how I like corners. So, based on probably a whole bunch of like Pro Football Focus stuff, he's probably up in the, top 5 or something. But like,
nah, you're about right. I would say he's probably close to top 15. That's probably about where his skill level is at. I mean,
like if I had to do top 5 corners right now in the league, based off of this last year, I'm going to say based off this last year, because normally I'd put Richard Sherman in there. He was injured most of the year, so I'm not going to put him in there right now just because he didn't play this last year. If it was based on like, well, I'm just going to say off this last year, I got to put Patrick Peterson first. Just
absolutely. That dude shut down everyone.
He locked down everyone all year. And then from there, I'd probably have to put it's tough. I want to put Chris Harris Jr. because he's awesome. He's so good. And the Broncos defense gave up a lot of points, but Chris Harris Jr. is still lockdown supreme corner. I'd probably right now put Jalen Ramsey, Chris Harris, Casey Hayward, and then number 5, kind of a toss up.
Xavier Rhodes.
Yeah,
off this
probably.
Last year.
Yeah. If it's off this last year, then yeah, Xavier Rhodes would probably be right after that. And a lot of people would probably put him over Casey Hayward and maybe Jalen Ramsey too. But again, the way I value corners is a little bit different. So that's me. But
yeah,
do you have a top 5?
Top 5 corners?
Since we're talking about Malcolm Butler,
Yeah. Well, I definitely agree with Patrick Peterson at the top. I think Jalen Ramsey's the next best, personally. Casey Hayward played great, even without Jason Verrett. I mean, he was covering number 1 corners all year. Or, I'm sorry, number 1 wide receivers all year. I'd probably put... Hold on. Who are your top 5 again? Oh, yeah, you put Chris Harris.
Peterson, Chris Harris.
I think Chris Harris kind of had a down year this year. He's still a great player, but overall, like, I just don't think he matches up very well on outside guys as well as he does on the inside in the slot. He definitely had to do a lot more of that this year. But just on this last year alone, I'd put Patrick Peterson, Jalen Ramsey, number 2. Number 3, I'd put Xavier Rhodes. Number 4, I'm going to go with Darius Slay. And then number 5, I'd pick Casey Hayward.
I guess
Slay played lights out this year.
I guess if it was going just off this last year, then yeah, Slay would have to be up there because he had an amazing year this year.
There's no doubt that Chris Harris is an amazing cornerback, and I'd probably put him at number 6 or number 7, right after those guys. But just if we're just going off last year, I can't snub Slay. He was lights out this year.
Yeah, he would be right up there with Patrick Peterson for me. If I forgot about.
And he played for the Lions. It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
Remember.
It's hard to think of people on the Lions defense is really good, but yeah, I forgot about him. Yeah, they're really good. I mean, look, if I was saying just in general who my top 5 are, like Peterson's still at the top for me, and then I've got. It's a pretty similar list, but based off recent history, I guess you'd say.
Body of work.
Body of work. Richard Sherman would be number 2 for me. And that's not just Seahawks bias. That is like, he has had a pretty great historical stretch during his first, handful of years in his career. So you have to put him up there out of respect for what he's done.
I don't think there's any doubt other than Seahawks haters.
Right.
Those are like people who are, or just straight up Richard Sherman haters, but I mean, say Desmond Trufant, like through your rose tinted glasses.
It's hard because Trufant's my favorite corner in the league. And he is, look, I will say it now. He is like borderline top 5 right now.
Yeah.
Like,
and I agree with you there.
He is really good.
He's not there yet.
He's just not there yet. I think this next year he might solidify himself, but there's a lot of good corners in the league, and it's not a bad thing if he's behind guys that are probably future Hall of Famers. Like, that's not a bad thing. Like, it's great corners now.
He is a great corner. I was about to stop you if you started putting Desmond Trufant on. I would have had to end this podcast. Like, no, we're starting over. Get that out of here.
Well,
no,
he's really good.
He is really good, Isaiah, and I agree with you there. But yeah, top 10. I'd put him top 10.
I'd put him top 6. He'd be like the 6th guy for me there, dude. He's been really good. It's just Falcons defense, when you don't have a pass rush, it's hard to cover for 8 seconds.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, that Malcolm Butler situation was crazy, but in the end, I mean, it's all over and done with now. He's gonna go get paid somewhere and be an upgrade for a team. Go to somewhere that'll,
actually give him, what he's deserving.
Yeah,
because he's done enough to deserve.
He should have gotten an extension, but then they went out and got Gilmore, which was like, oh, they're getting a corner to complement their secondary, and then it's like, no, they're just getting him to replace Butler, essentially. And I mean, he did pretty damn good at it. Yeah. Gilmore's
a great corner, so it's not a surprise that he would fit in the Patriot system. But I was going to use that talk about cornerbacks and how Malcolm Butler might be a free agent to kind of transition a little bit into the quarterback situation, which I don't think we talked about last week on the podcast. We had talked about this ourselves.
We did talk about this off the air.
Yeah,
and
the air. Play some jazz music.
Yeah. We talked about this last week, just hanging out, talking about, there's going to be a lot of quarterback changes this year for a lot of teams. And I'm actually glad that we waited to talk about it, because I think the Super Bowl and Nick Foles' performance adds a little bit of an interesting kick onto the quarterback market, because now we know Nick Foles is still going to be on contract next year for the Eagles. So they have a couple of options. They can either try to trade him away now, which I think would be the smartest thing to do, because his value is going to be I know his value right now is as high as it's going to be. But there is a lot of value with having a quarterback that can come in and obviously execute your system.
Yes.
Obviously, he executed that system to the highest level, played the best stretch of football that he's ever played, even with his 27-2 season with Chip Kelly. I think that these last few games were the best stretch of football that he's ever played. So there's a couple of different options for them, but let's say they do decide, okay, we want to get whatever we can out of Nick Foles, Super Bowl MVP. He just went on a tear. Let's get everything we can out of this guy. Who do you think would be some potential suitors for that?
Well, I will say before I tell you, Carson Wentz is still expected to miss the first 4 games of the season.
Yeah, I don't really know about that.
I don't either.
I heard that he was going to be back by training camp.
That's what I heard too, but recently I've been hearing that it's expected to take a little bit longer and that he won't be back because of how late it happened in the season. Just based on the timetable, he's supposed to miss the first couple of games. So people have been speculating that they might franchise tag Nick Foles, so that way they can have him for the first couple of games. And once
he's still on contract this year.
He's still on contract? Okay.
Yeah,
so
his contract terminates if he's still on the roster by, I think it's February something of next year.
Okay. So
they still have him on contract.
If he's still on contract, then what people have been saying is that they're going to keep. Either way, they're saying they're going to keep him until Carson Wentz gets fully healthy and he's ready to go, and then they'll trade him and see what they can get. But
okay, in this hypothetical situation, let's say Carson Wentz gets ahead of schedule and he's ready to go by week 1, and there's a lot of teams calling the front office, looking to see what he's available for. Who do you think are some guys that are going to come calling?
Well, I think, it'd be kind of weird if it happened, but I feel like the Chiefs are one of the big ones because they're putting kind of all their eggs in a basket right now with Patrick Mahomes. And if he doesn't pan out, they don't have a backup plan. This grabbing Nick Foles, depending on the price tag, he already has experience working with Andy Reid, so it wouldn't be like a horrible switch for him. I think that it would be a good kind of safety net for them if Patrick Mahomes really struggles, because they're still kind of in like win now mode with the Chiefs. They have a lot of good weapons and a lot of good players right now, and they just have a couple more holes that they need to fill on their team.
Sure.
And they should continue to be, a pretty solid contender in the AFC. So I think the Chiefs are one. I mean, everybody always goes to the Browns because they're like, Browns always need quarterbacks.
Always need a quarterback, yeah.
And they're certainly in the mix, but I don't think they go after him right away just because they have so much money they can use. It's like they're probably going to go after one of the more higher tier guys like Kirk Cousins first, something like that. So as far as Nick Foles goes, I don't see him landing right with them.
No, yeah, I think the Browns are at the point where it's like they either go after, they're going to have to try to throw a bunch of money at the top free agent quarterback available, and if they don't get him, just draft a guy.
Right. So
no point in getting one of these
in
second
that
tier
case,
guys.
I think probably the top fit I'd say for him right now would be Arizona. That's kind of where I'm at with it because they are in the process of getting their team rebuilt a little bit here because they really need to revamp it to be able to compete in a division where you still have Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll on one team. You still have Goff and McVay and Gurley on another. And now you have Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan, who's an offensive genius on the Niners. So all of those teams are going upwards. Seattle's regressing a little bit right now, but so many injuries this last year kind of overshadowed the fact that they're still a great team. So with a couple of extra players to fill some holes, Seattle's still going to be right there competing for the division. So I think he might go to Arizona because they're probably going to pay him a lot of money and they're trying to, get some excitement with their team again.
Definitely.
But those are kind of my top two: Kansas City, Arizona, and then maybe you see him in Jacksonville. But at Blake Bortles, Nick Foles, the gap isn't huge between those guys. I mean, Nick Foles I would pick over Bortles right now pretty easily.
Oh, yeah.
But the prices, I think, Jacksonville doesn't have as much money to spend as, especially not coming up with all the contracts that they're going to have to renew. So Jacksonville isn't as much in play as I think Arizona is.
Yeah, and I'll start right now by saying I agree with you on Arizona. I think that they're definitely the best fit for him because they need a quarterback. Carson Palmer is going to retire if he did he already announce his retirement?
Yes. Yes, he is already retired.
So they need a quarterback. They're not in a great position to draft one of the top quarterbacks in the draft. So they could get a guy later in the first round like Lamar Jackson or if Baker Mayfield slides. I don't know. It depends on who you value, who you think is going to be in those top few picks. But if they do end up drafting a guy like Lamar Jackson, he's not ready to play right away. No. And Nick Foles would be about as good of a stopgap as you can get. I mean,
yeah,
he's a top tier backup for sure with starting quarterback capability. And he proved that this year. He came in and, started off a little slow, but as the season went on, and into the postseason, I mean, he played lights out against some of the best teams in the league.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously he can perform, and yes, that might be a testament to Peterson's system. To focus on system quarterbacks. But Foles would be great for Arizona. He'd have Larry Fitzgerald for another year. Plus guys like John Brown who can stretch the field, and they can having David Johnson as their safety valve.
Yeah.
That would be, I think Arizona is the top fit. And I also don't think that, while Foles' value is as high as it is right now, nobody's going to be giving up like a first round pick for him.
No.
I mean, the Vikings giving up a first round pick for Bradford was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But at the same time, They
Well, it's a little
they
different because
thought they were,
Bradford has the talent. He has the talent. He just can't stay
Right.
healthy. That's
And
really
they-
all it is.
and the Vikings knew all they needed. Or at least they thought all they needed was a quarterback, and they would be able to win with their defense. So they took the risk, and while it didn't pay off for them, I mean that's completely out of the norm. Nobody's going to give up a first for Nick Foles. I think at most we're looking at a second round pick, maybe
I can see it.
for the right team. But more realistically, probably a third and a fifth or something like that. So I think Arizona's in play there. I also think a team like the Bills could be looking for a quarterback to until they can draft a guy and get some better weapons there, because I mean they don't have any weapons. Jordan Matthews, I mean, good as a number 2 or 3. As your number 1, not so great. Zay Jones, not so great. Deontay Thompson, not so great.
Right.
I mean, plus he'd be reunited with LaShawn McCoy. They would.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bills, I think, could be a good fit, at least until they're able to draft a quarterback, because they're also not they're kind of in the same situation as Arizona, where they don't have one of those top picks to go get their quarterback.
Right.
They made it to the playoffs, so they have a bottom 12 pick, and it's just that's not going to get them a top quarterback. So they can go get Nick Foles this year, and then find it, and then just keep their draft picks until next year, and maybe try to trade up into the first to get somebody the following draft.
Sure.
Other than that, I mean, really, you can just list off a bunch of teams that are also looking for Kirk Cousins, because Kirk's, he can only go to one team, and the teams that don't get him are all still going to need quarterbacks, and the price is going to be significantly lower for Nick Foles, and a team like the Jets maybe are willing to get Foles for a year. Like you said, Jacksonville might be in play. The Browns.
Well, in that regard, then let's talk about Kirk Cousins, who is the most highly sought after free agent quarterback right now. He's not technically a free agent yet, but they just signed Alex Smith and paid him $23 million. So I'm going to assume, and Kirk Cousins is assuming, he's going to be a free agent unless they trade him. So, which people are speculating, just like I was saying with Nick Foles, they could franchise tag him and just...
They can't franchise tag him again. They'd be paying him close to $40 million.
Right. That's why I don't think that's going to happen. I think that's why everyone's assuming he's going to be a free agent. So assuming he's a free agent, I'll have you start this one. Where do you think Kirk Cousins ends up as a free agent?
For me, it comes down to two different places. I think it comes down... There's a lot of teams in play here, but I think the two most likely are going to be the Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets.
Okay.
Both of them have a tremendous amount of cap space. Decent offensive players. I mean, the Browns have Josh Gordon. They have Duke Johnson. They have what's the kid's name who dropped the...
Corey Coleman?
Corey Coleman, even though he dropped that touchdown, I mean, he's still a good, solid player. The Browns have the first and the fourth pick in the draft. They have a lot of capital to spend on Kirk Cousins and also fill in these other needs they have.
Right.
They have a defense that played pretty well last year. They're about average, which is better than they've been fielding recently. Mm-hmm. Their offensive line is still okay. The only problem is their coach. Hugh Jackson's a terrible coach. I've said it.
And their front office.
So many times. Yeah, their front office. And Kirk may be tired of an inept front office. I mean, look at the Redskins. They wouldn't sign him, but I mean, it's also easy to...
If it's a long-term deal and it's a lot of money, it's certainly possible that he takes that and just says, yeah, this is stability for the next 5 years.
And then we can really evaluate Hugh Jackson for sure.
Right.
I am in the boat where I think he's terrible. I think the Browns should have won at least 2 or 3 games last year, and they didn't. They lost every single game they played. They're 1-31 in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I think he should be out the door, but give him a solid quarterback, give him, somebody who can move the ball down the field and sustain a drive without throwing interceptions. I mean, Kirk Cousins have been putting up top 5 quarterback numbers. I'm not saying he is a top 5 quarterback, but he's been putting up volume stats like crazy. The numbers are there. It's proven he will produce, even with guys that might not be the greatest receivers. Give him a guy like Josh Gordon. I'd love to see what he does with a guy like Josh Gordon. Look what he did with Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson. He spreads the ball. He's good at doing that. So I think the Browns, if they can pay him whatever he wants plus $5 million, you're going to have to try really hard to get somebody to come to Cleveland with the track record they have of quarterbacks. But if they're willing to pay him $30 million a year, I mean, if you're Kirk Cousins, you have to take that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't matter what team you play for.
Money.
You're earning $30 million a year for 5 years. I mean,
so let's say that they offer him $30 million a year, but maybe a place like Denver offers him $27 million a year.
I honestly don't think Denver's in play here, because as much as, well, I'm sure that they're, right now they're trying really hard to get him over there. But if I'm Kirk Cousins, I look at that offensive line. It's, not very good, especially the right side of their O-line is terrible. They have right now, technically, they have Demaryius Thomas and Sanders. One of them is going this year. One of them has to go. Vance Joseph isn't all that great of a coach.
No, he's bad.
Their defense regressed after Wade Phillips left, and they are going to...
As do most defenses.
But Aqib Talib is going to be leaving more than likely. He's declining anyways. The rest of the secondary outside of Chris Harris is average at best. And then you have Von Miller, and they still have Brandon Marshall, right?
No.
Where did he end up going?
Brandon Marshall, after he was at Denver, went to, he was with the Jets for a while. And then he...
No, I'm talking about Brandon Marshall, the linebacker.
Oh, the linebacker. Yes, they have Brandon Marshall, the linebacker.
Not the receiver. I knew he
I was like, dude, he hasn't been with Denver in forever.
Yeah, God, no. I wasn't talking about the receiver. He's with the Giants right now.
Yes, he's with
technically,
the Giants.
But he didn't play any last year.
Yeah.
But, I think Brandon Marshall, the linebacker, is still with Denver. So, I mean, they have a few good pieces, but I see that team and I see a decline coming because...
Well, it's already on the decline.
Well, absolutely. But I mean, I'm looking at the defense and I'm seeing a decline coming. And yeah, sure, the offense was terrible. So, anytime an offense can't sustain drives, your defense is going to look bad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, their guys are getting up there in age. Von Miller's going to be, 29 this year? He's still producing, of course. He's still going to be great for a couple more years, but I'm thinking, like, if I'm Kirk Cousins, you want a long-term deal because you want a team that's going to be built for long-term success. Broncos are not built for long-term success. Broncos are built to either win it next year or that's it.
Yeah.
And you look at a team like the Browns, of course, they're not built to win anything right now. They're built to I think they're built to compete if they had a solid quarterback. But then but there's so many factors. I mean, look at the divisions they're in, for example. For the Browns, you have an aging Joe Flacco, an aging Ben Roethlisberger. Le'Veon Bell is leaving out of Pittsburgh. That defense isn't looking so great. They have to find their quarterback for the future. The Ravens have a good defense. Their offense is still middling. Look at the Bengals. They're regressing like crazy. I mean...
You never have to worry about the Bengals.
You never have to worry about the Bengals, except for
not with Marvin Lewis there.
Yeah. Yeah, Marvin Lewis is still around somehow. So I look at that and I say, okay, the Browns are a sneaky contender for that division. If they can get a solid quarterback and get some other pieces on offense with their top picks and defense. Of course, they need some help in their secondary.
Right.
But they're really, on paper, only a few players away from being a contender in that division.
Well, and what helps is that if they got Kirk Cousins, they wouldn't have to spend one of those first couple of picks on a quarterback.
Exactly. They can trade out of that number one spot, get some more draft capital, which as if they needed any more draft picks.
And people would be like, why would they trade away the first pick? It's like, because everyone else that's trading up to that spot wants a quarterback.
Yeah,
because the Giants are taking one. If you really think the Giants are not going to draft a quarterback this next year, in this draft,
you're delusional.
You're delusional. If they don't, then they're delusional, because Eli Manning's not the answer, and he's going to probably retire really soon. So,
and they're gonna have to pay Odell Beckham soon, and they're going to need a rookie quarterback on a cheap contract to be able to pay Odell Beckham. They're not going to be able to keep Eli Manning around and sign Odell Beckham. That's not going to happen.
Right. So if they can if they can trade, like you're saying, if they can trade that first pick and move down a couple picks, just move down one pick, just the Giants trading up to that spot they would have to give up a whole bunch just to move up that one spot. I mean, there's teams that are willing to give up so much. We've seen it before when you
saw the Bears last year trade up one spot to get Mitchell Trubisky,
to get a guy that the Niners didn't even want.
Yeah, they probably knew at that point they were going to try to get Garoppolo, and if not, they knew that Cousins would sign with them.
Yeah.
So John Lynch had a plan, and he ripped off the Bears like crazy.
Yeah,
but
he nailed it.
Even if they don't trade down just one spot, there's so many different scenarios. They could trade back to a team like Arizona, or a team that's going to be willing to give up their first and a slew of other draft picks so they can move up to that number one spot. And even if the Browns move that far back, they have so many draft picks. If they want a guy further up, they can trade up and get him and not lose out on any of their picks.
Exactly.
And then you look at, so what I was talking about with the divisions, look at the divisions look at the AFC West. The Broncos maybe have one more year left of being able to compete there, but then you have the Raiders, who are looking to revamp their whole team, or at least their system.
Sure.
And so that way they can get the most out of Derek Carr, who's their franchise quarterback, and they have some talent on that team that needs to just be realized. They just need to have the right coaches there. You look at the Chiefs, they just drafted their quarterback. They're trying to continue their dominance in that division.
Right.
And then you have the Chargers, who still have Phillip Rivers and a very solid defense and just team all around. If I'm Kirk Cousins, I say, which division do I want to go to? The AFC North or the AFC West, which is a bloodbath.
Yeah. And I think that your point about the Jets being in contention as well for a quarterback is
right. I forgot all about this.
Is a when you talk about this division, this part about divisions that you want to play in, I mean, really your only other huge competition is Tom Brady in that division. So you could at least be in great contention for a wild card spot, because the rest of your division isn't really like top tier teams.
Well, yeah, the Bills are looking to rebuild probably.
They already kind of started. They weren't really supposed to be a playoff team this year. It just happened to be that they did better than they really should have. But
then, Miami's going to need. I mean, they're.
And I was actually going to say, Miami is maybe in contention more than we think, because who knows what's going to happen with Ryan Tannehill going forward. Who knows if they really stick with him. He didn't really show franchise quarterback anything before he had his injury.
Well, he's been improving a little bit every year. And so this was the year that, they say every year, oh, this is the year he's going to break out. But this was truly, I think, the year that had he stayed healthy, he would have cemented himself as their franchise quarterback. It just so happens that he got injured and they needed to bring in Jay Cutler. I don't think the front office is ready to give up on Tannehill quite yet. I think that, if I had to choose between Kirk Cousins and Ryan Tannehill, I'd pick Kirk Cousins, of course. But I think that Miami is going to go with Tannehill for now, but you never know. I mean, it's a solid theory for sure, and I see where you're coming from. But yeah, I mean that division has been, trying their best to knock down Tom Brady for the last 20 years or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he really only has a couple years left. I know everybody keeps saying that, and it never seems to happen, but come on, there's just no way his body is going to be able to keep up with that.
Yeah, I mean, he's, the way that he diets and eats and takes care of his body, I mean, yes, realistically, he can set the goal of, I want to play until I'm 45. Like, you can set that goal. I don't think he's going to make it to 45. I think he'll make it to 42. And then I think he's probably going to have to be done. Like, you can't really, your body's, I don't think his body's going to be able to take the hits after that. But yeah, I really don't want to talk about Kirk Cousins the whole rest of the podcast here. But the last scenario I would just wanted to throw out to you with Kirk Cousins is the idea of him going to the Vikings.
Yes, that was something we talked about.
Yeah. What would you make of Kirk Cousins possibly going there?
Well, me personally, because we talked about this already, I think that if Kirk Cousins goes there, they're absolutely a Super Bowl contender instantly.
Right.
They got this far with Case Keenum, who's got one of the weakest arms in the league, and he's a great playmaker, but this is the first year he's really proven to be able to do these kinds of things. And I think it's more a credit to their offensive system than it is Case Keenum suddenly making this massive leap in development.
Right.
Whereas Kirk Cousins with Jay Gruden has been putting up gaudy stats for the last 3 years and has been showing improvement in those 3 years. His numbers are down this year, but he lost two 1,000-yard receivers in the offseason and had to play with guys like Josh Doxson and Jamison Crowder, and
really just a lot of Jordan Reed, unproven guys,
right. And he made Vernon Davis look like he was a great tight end again when he was in. I mean, I think Kirk Cousins is definitely an upgrade for that team, but I just don't know if they can afford him and keep that defense together. It's kind of like this whole thing that Seattle's going through right now, where they have all these guys on defense that are insanely talented, but because now they have a franchise quarterback contract on their team, it's harder to keep all those pieces together.
Right.
If Kirk Cousins wants to win now, like win today, he will go to the Vikings. But if he's looking for long-term success, that's not where he's going to stay.
Yeah. And a lot of success comes from having a quarterback. You really, really need a quarterback to succeed in this league. And
sure,
you can have a season like the Eagles just had, where you can have Nick Foles, and you can make it, and that is possible. We've seen it before with guys like Rex Grossman and Trent Dilfer and these guys that really aren't elite quarterbacks, but they make it to the Super Bowl and win sometimes. Like, it can happen, but you don't see Rex Grossman getting 3 Super Bowls, 4 Super Bowls. You don't see Trent Dilfer getting 3 or 4 Super Bowls.
Right.
They have like this season where it works that season.
I thought that was going to be Blake Bortles this year, honestly.
Yeah, I did too.
That defense.
But either way, if you're looking for long-term and consistent success, you need a quarterback that can really maintain some sort of level of success. And that's where Seattle kind of had to make that sacrifice of, we may have to lose a couple of defensive players, but it's easier to replace, a solid linebacker than it is to replace a franchise Super Bowl caliber quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, not saying Kirk Cousins is necessarily a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, because we haven't seen him in the Super Bowl, so he's not technically a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, but he's certainly a guy that could boost a team like the Vikings to that point of Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I mean, they almost made it there with Case Keenum.
Right.
So, I mean, and it was their offense that looked terrible against the Eagles.
Right.
Their defense looked bad too, absolutely. But, and I also don't think that Kirk Cousins would have been a 31-point swing for them.
No.
But it would have absolutely been a different game had they had a better quarterback, because Case Keenum just looked awful out there.
Yeah, he was
making bad throws, not moving around in the pocket. Yeah,
other than the first drive.
Yeah, first drive looked
he was
great.
MVP Case Keenum.
Yep.
Rest of the game, not so much.
So for me, definitely the Browns and the Jets are the two that I'm expecting to sign him. Well, one of them is going to sign him. Mm-hmm. They could do split custody, I guess, but
they get Kirk Cousins every other weekend.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get Kirk. The Browns will get Kirk on the odd weeks. Even weeks, Jets will get him, so that way the Browns still get majority custody and claim him on their taxes and stuff.
Yeah. So there's lots of other quarterbacks we can talk about. We can talk about all the quarterbacks all day, but really the last thing, I don't want to just sit here and talk about quarterbacks all the time. So the last thing I really wanted to talk about today, just to bring up, was the recent news that Josh McDaniels withdrew from the head coaching job with the Indianapolis Colts. And it was a pretty shady move, I would say myself.
I think he's with the Bills, isn't he?
Who?
Shady.
Yeah. Josh McDaniels, his agent. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit sick, so I'm having a little bit of a trouble with the breathing and whatnot.
Yeah, as soon as I walked in here and little dude I was like, "How you doing?" He goes, "Good, really sick." I was like, "Great, I'm gonna get sick."
Yeah, Owen's sick, and I've been fighting off this cold as best I can, eating my everyday orange. But either way.
Anyways,
the point.
McDaniels
pulled out, and his agent left him because he was like, "This is nonsense. I'm not putting up with this anymore."
Well, and his agent represents the GM for the Colts, Rick Ballard or however you pronounce his name. So I mean, he's obviously like, dude, not cool, disqualified.
Yeah.
And it was like,
no thanks. So I just want to say, like, a lot of the speculation has been that because of the reason why was because they might have told him like, hey, Belichick, may be retiring pretty soon here. And we want you to, take over as head coach when he's out.
I think that's got to be the most likely situation.
Really, that has to be the reason.
There's
why
no
would
other
you
reason.
Turn down? It's either that, or the other thing I was seeing, and that I can understand, is that he might have gotten some information about Andrew Luck.
Yep.
That Andrew Luck may not be able to return to football at all. And I think that would be really the only other plausible thing, is that he was probably thinking, I can go work with Andrew Luck. And that might not be an option. He probably doesn't want to go work with Jacoby Brissett. So,
yeah, I think it has to be one of those two things. I think the more likely one is that they promised him the head coaching spot when Belichick retires, because I think next year is going to be the last year. Personally, I think that all signs are pointing towards next year, Belichick and Tom Brady retiring together, going into the Hall of Fame together eventually in the same year, because their careers have kind of just been linked together.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything that will ever separate them. And I think that I think McDaniels has had a better grip on Belichick's system than any of his other coordinators have had.
Right.
So I think that they want to keep him around, so when that time comes, he can help them sustain some of their success. However, I mean, we're talking about a fan base here that's used to going to the Super Bowl every year. That's a lot of pressure. I mean, with the Colts, you wouldn't have nearly that pressure. You would have, especially if you didn't have Andrew Luck, you'd be rebuild essentially.
Right.
They're saying pretty much never started building anyways after they got Luck. They were like, okay, well, you can carry us to 11 wins and a division title.
You can do it. It's the Aaron Rodgers syndrome. But we have a good quarterback, so everything else will fall into place.
Plus, but that division is a bloodbath too. I mean, Deshaun Watson's going to come back next year. Mariota's going to be in a much better offensive system.
And
Jacksonville
healthy.
is going to be basically the same team that just won 11
with
games.
Possibly a better quarterback.
Yeah, who knows? So who knows? Maybe I think it came down to a lot of, and maybe it was a combination of all of these things. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think Robert Kraft offered him the head coach spot for sure when Belichick retires, and honestly, that's probably his best move.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of holes with that team that he's going to have to consider by that point.
Because he's definitely not Bill Belichick.
He's not Bill Belichick, and who knows what his talent evaluation is like. But Bill Belichick has a knack for talent evaluation, and I think without that, there's going to be a lot of these players that he's not just going to be able to hit a home run on whoever he picks up from other teams.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with that. Either way, I feel bad for the Colts because they
missed out on every single head coaching guy.
They're super behind on head coaches now, and it's like, I mean, what do you do now? Like, who do they go after now?
Daryl Bevell.
That's the first guy that popped in my mind, but I'm like, oh my god!
I think
why?
he interviewed for a quarterback coach spot somewhere.
Yeah, I think he did, but
yeah, I mean,
he's
other
not
than
head
that,
coach material, and there's not a lot of good qualified guys out there. You could go into the college ranks and try to Sean McVay it and just get a guy that you're trying to hit a home run with, but that doesn't really work out most of the time.
I don't even know. Usually, I'm pretty up to date on like college guys and stuff, but I don't even know who you would go to the college ranks to go for, because they've already figured out all of their head coaching stuff. I mean,
I know that there's a guy on the Eagles staff that I think it's their QB,
their quarterback coach. Yeah,
I think he's
Flippano or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but he's apparently still sought after as well. So.
Right, he might be the most. Now that I'm remembering, because he was a guy I wanted Seattle to hire as our offensive coordinator. Yeah, we signed freaking Schottenheimer.
Well, okay, let's not. Schottenheimer's not
I know. We don't know yet. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But either way, yeah. Now the Colts are in a terrible spot because they need to find that, and then that coach needs to put together a coaching staff. It's just going to be really hard. The Colts are going to be basically in the same situation they were in this year.
Yeah.
I hear Chuck Pagano is available.
They could bring back Chuck Pagano.
Like, hey, man. I mean, you're not getting looks anywhere else. Come on.
And then you're not getting looks from us.
How about one more year? One more year.
One more year of being complete garbage. Yeah. Yeah, that's really all I had to say about that, though.
Yeah, and overall, that's all we really have time for anyways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was a lot to talk about. I'm glad we got to do just some, good brainstorming, just kind of talking about, quarterbacks. And we'll have in the future some, maybe next week we can talk about available free agents. We can talk about their likely landing places for some of the top free agents at their positions. And
there's plenty more quarterbacks to talk about, too. There's lots of quarterbacks. So
yeah,
if you are listening this far and you have ideas of where these quarterbacks are going to go, then you should leave it in the comments and to say, hey, this is where I think that all these quarterbacks are going to go. So
yeah, absolutely. If you disagree with our cornerback rankings, let us know what your top 5 are. Tell us what you think. Tell us why we're stupid. I would love to hear it. I'd love to hear why I'm stupid.
Yeah. Just don't put Malcolm Butler in the top 5.
Yeah, I'm going to delete your comment if you put it. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, thanks for watching the Philbrook Football Podcast. We'll see you guys next week
on the Philbrook Football.
Oh, yeah, you said that.